Coogs House. All right, the Houston Cougars, I'm telling you right now, are heading into the Big 12 football season after having constructed one of the Big 12's strongest secondaries.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I am your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater who can step by, please be sure to subscribe down below. That way we can delay us on the Cougs into your newsfeed each and every day. Appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Welcome back to the YouTube channel. That's where you found us. It is so good to see you again. Remember, we're doing a giveaway for the hat, a new hat of the same one I have on, Cougar Pod, Locked On, all that kind of stuff, at 1,500 subscribers. We're doing a giveaway every 250. So make sure you subscribe to help us get there and comment on the video to let us know you are in the contest. If after watching a video all about DBs, you feel safe and unconcerned about it or what have you, and you don't have anything else to say, tell us down below. So this was an interesting controversial thing. Yesterday we asked about pineapple on pizza. Today, do you put olives on pizza? I did not know that. Anyway, do you put olives on your pizza? All right, so I mentioned at the top, I think that Houston has built a very, very strong secondary as they head into the Big 12. And today's episode is going to be looking at how that worked, who goes where, and in the final segment, we will talk about what could go wrong with how they've built the secondary. It's a very hypothetical third segment. I don't think it's going to go wrong, but got to talk about it a little bit. So I think first things first, we got to talk about the corners. But even before that, kind of as a precursor to all of that, let's make sure we understand the Houston Cougar defensive scheme Doug Belk has ran for his time since he got to Houston. It's the very common 4-2-5 you see across college football. The basic way that works for defensive backs is that you have two full-time corners on the field. You have one full-time high safety on the field. The other two of the defensive backs, right, 4-2-5, so it's going to be five of them. You've only counted three so far, are kind of safeties, kind of nickel guys, kind of down in the box like a linebacker, kind of back up like a high safety. They kind of have to do a bunch of different things. At various points in Doug Buck's career as a defensive coordinator, you've seen him literally rotate guys in that are better at different things. So they'll have a true nickel guy in at one of those safety spots when he comes down and plays more of a nickel type corner, more of a linebacker size safety type guy when he puts him in the box, and kind of depending on what they are seeing that week. So like against Navy, you see stockier tackler types. Against SMU, not that anything worked against SMU last year defensively, but against SMU, you typically will see more of the rangy defensive back, cornerback types out there playing nickel. And what's been nice is when you have a true hybrid kind of guy that kind of gets to play both. Okay, so that's functionally what we're looking at there. At the two true corner spots, we got to go through one returner and a handful of new names at four guys that kind of all rotate through this, and I think all four are very, very good. So let's start with Alex Hogan. Alex Hogan was a Texas transfer a long time ago, one of the top recruits in 2019. He's a really, really strong solo tackler, and he's familiar. We watched him play last year. The 5 healthy games he played in last year, he played very, very well, graded out as far as his PFF grades and stuff like that. Very, very high, meaning he's in the right place, the right time, making the right plays, etc. as a corner. He did only play in those 5 games last year, and there's a solid argument that Belk and Dana and others have made that his injury or injuries to guys like him in the secondary kind of led to the poorest defense we saw at various points last year that led to Houston jumping in the transfer portal quite a bit, right? I don't mean to skip past him too fast, but he feels like he's at least in the rotation, if not a firm presence on the football field at corner, right? The other guys coming in at corner are new. That's like Isaiah Hamilton, Malik Fleming, Latrell McCutcheon, all kind of rotating around that other corner spot or rotating in some with Alex, right? I'm going to start with Isaiah Hamilton because I think it's a really cool story for a couple reasons. One, this is a Channel High School kid that then went to Texas Southern and was first team all SWAC. 5 picks last season. 2 of them went for touchdowns. Only allowed 4 touchdowns as a coverage corner, only thrown at 56 times, frankly. And so, admittedly, a SWAC competition is going to be a big jump to Big 12 competition. This dude is a gamer. I'm really excited to watch this guy play. His Texas Southern highlights are a ton of fun if you can find them on YouTube. They're kind of hard to, you got to like be looking for it and be really Googling, but a ton of fun. It's cool to see a Houston's own kid stick with the city through and through in multiple ways in this instance. And the people I talk to that do the, that are practice every day and are watching practice like that point out like he absolutely thrives in like the true one-on-one type drills. And we know how good Houston's receiving core is, and that Hamilton is that kind of like a gamer competitive type in those one-on-one type drills that can dominate those is a good sign for the future. I'm really, really excited about him. He's 6'1", 165, so a little bit on the lighter side in the pants, but he's doing all right in all other aspects. I'm excited to see what he looks like moving into the big time. And what a great story would this be for this kid to be moving into the big time with Houston as Houston's moving on up. He moves on up too and really like gets a chance to dominate the Big 12 because there's so many great receivers that get out there and watch him cover. Malik Fleming is another small school transfer into Houston in the transfer portal last spring. If you're thinking that name sounds familiar, it's because he was at East Carolina. Houston saw him while he was at East Carolina, and he's a shorter, stockier build of a corner compared to both Alex and Isaiah. Malik Fleming looks more like a corner you'd have seen on the NFL field in like 2004. He's a little bit stockier build, like 5'9". He had 5 picks. I'm reading my Isaiah Hamilton note now. He's a strong solo tackler, right? He had 76 solo tackles. And he was all American Athletic Conference. He has 6 picks in his career. That's where I got crisscrossed my numbers there. 6 picks in his career. He's more of the tackling coverage corner type. I wonder if Big 12 people try to take advantage of the height. Now, he's dealt with that his whole life, and again, was an all-American Athletic Conference corner at East Carolina, so he'll win at plenty of those 50-50 matchups. I don't mean to say that he won't, but I wonder where he fits into this rotation. I do think that he's an impact player, though, athletic. We saw him play in the American Athletic Conference. We saw him do very well in that conference. The name I'm most interested, though, in this corner group, and he'll kind of bleed over into the safety group as well, is one Latrell McCutcheon, because Latrell McCutcheon is first and foremost, you should probably point out, the most recent addition to the DB room. He transferred in this summer from USC. He was at USC after going to Oklahoma. He did the deal where he got to Oklahoma, played for Riley, and then transferred with him to USC. Played in real, like as a nickel rotational guy at both Oklahoma and USC. At Oklahoma as a true freshman, I should point out too. So it's Big 12 football as a true freshman. He sees and he has seen and knows what he's getting into at the Big 12, I should say. He's more of a long, modern corner as compared to Fleming and Isaiah. He is a former four-star recruit from Austin LBJ High School. His brother is on the team as well. Trevion McCutcheon, we mentioned in the LB, in the linebacker video. We mentioned him as we look forward to the season. It looks like he transferred into Houston and played together with his brother, and that's a cool story to be following as well. McCutcheon's got so much experience at nickel that playing out on the edge as a true one-on-one corner, cat coverage type stuff. I got that guy, you got that guy, whatever. Like I got that guy, you got that guy. That's what we always call it in coaching. Will be interesting to see, right? I am confident he plays somewhere on the field. My question just is he in this corner group, or is he more rotational into that safety group I want to talk about in the next segment? But we are getting ready to play football games, and as it's time to watch football games, it's time to talk about our buddies at Game Time as well. Now, buying tickets shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best prices guaranteed, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you'll have. There are flash deals and last-minute tickets, easy to find and buy tickets every kind of event. You can have images of the seat views you're looking at and the lowest price guaranteed. Event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc. All kinds of things for you. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, game day, comedy, theater, and more. Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Snag the tickets without the stress at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, so I said that I want to talk about the safeties, but I kind of saw Latrell McCutcheon bleeding into this group. And before I get into the more traditional safeties, I need to explain what I mean by that. McCutcheon strikes me, because he's got so much experience as the nickel, as a guy that in obvious passing downs or against strong pass-happy teams or teams that just go 4 and 5 wide every play with no tight ends, you could see him as a traditional nickel kind of guy, and functionally in the 4-2-5 defense, that functions as one of the two low safeties, with the other safety either rotating high to do a too high look or also being low, but maybe outside the field, right? And then the low safety body type, whereas McCutcheon be out in coverage, the other safety might, if they were also low, be like into the box for run game support. I just see McCutcheon as being a very versatile player with experience doing a lot of different things. I could see him work out into more of an outside corner as he continues to grow and develop. I don't mean to write him off as a guy that can't get out there and do that. There were moments at both USC and Oklahoma, frankly, that he had to do that. But what I really see, probably first and foremost, is just how much of his snaps on tape have been at that interior spot. And that does occupy one of these three safety spots. And as we talk through this, the truth is that depth at the safety is not as friendly as depth at the corner spots. And so when you have to play three, you don't quite have as many. Like, I could see why he may be the crossover guy in that instance, assuming all things are healthy. The other safeties I'd imagine that you see played on the field a lot are a couple of new guys. And we'll start with the guy that I think functionally is going to be one of the most impactful transfers into the University of Houston this year, and that's Juwan Gaston. I mentioned his name before. I mentioned his name at the start of the summer when some impactful transfers. This kid could be a real baller. If he gets it all put together, I'm telling you, he's going to make a real difference on this football team. 5'11", 185, was a 4-star, committed to Auburn out of high school. Some stuff happened. He had to go to junior college. He's not in crazy trouble, but he had to go to junior college. And out of junior college, he committed to Houston last January and spent the spring on campus. He actually committed on high school signing day. We did like a little 5-minute blurb on that, all the signing day buzz back then. This guy was, highly coveted by the South Carolinas and other SEC schools of the world, and he chose Houston. I think because he fell in love with the city, it sounds like, in the coaching staff and the family type atmosphere. But he is electric fast. I mean, like, fast guy that makes not fast people look not fast, right? Like, just a crazy burning amount of speed coming out of Juwan Gaston makes me think he's an immediate impact guy at the deep safety. Of the three safeties, the one that is consistently deep. And I think that, it's worth pointing out that same speed could lead to plays in special teams. Now, he was on a long list at one point of guys that were working out as punt returners and kick returners. That list has since shrunk. Just Duarte reported there were, after practice, Duarte noticed a handful of guys catching kicks, and he didn't see Gaston out there. I would not write him off as a returner. Juwan Gaston is a very natural returner if you go back and watch his high school and junior college tape. I don't say that like he doesn't need the practice, but if you're having more of a tryout of sorts, like, he can do it. He's not in a handful of guys that needs to try out to do it, right? So I think it's safe to say that he's not out of that group. He's got good ball skills. Frankly, in junior college, him being on the field as a deep safety led to it appeared to be, I didn't see every single junior college game over a couple of years, I guess, but appeared to be the kind of guy that once he's in a deep safety, teams are throwing short. And when he lines up out on top of somebody, people are throwing the other side of the field, right? And I think that's important because you want to see a guy that dominates junior college football like that if you're going to be moving into the Big 12 and playing Big 12 type of football. So I think Juwan Gaston is an impact player, is going to play the deep free safety. But the guy I think people are most excited about is actually the other safety. AJ Halsey, right? Transfers in Fort Bend Marshall product at a high school, or went to Fort Bend Marshall, then at a high school, went to New Mexico, and at New Mexico led all, you've heard this 1,000 times at this point, led all freshmen in the country in tackles, right? He was a freshman All-American at 2 different publications, and he had 3 picks and 2 pass breakups, but he only gave up 3 touchdowns. He's a solid guy in coverage, even if he's not necessarily the ball hawk that a corner might be. I am really, really excited about this guy. I think the same way that Hassan Hippolyte as a boundary safety came down and laid the wood on people, I think that's the kind of thing you're going to see AJ Halsey do as well. He's a great tackler. I mean, he'll step in and be one of the best tacklers on the team, right? And that's important at that safety spot. You got to kind of yo-yo up and down depending on the coverage and offensive formation, I should say. And what I like about him is that, frankly, and every time he's talked to anyone media related, he is like giddy excited to be here, right? That's a good sign, I would say. But also, I think what I like about him is when you watch him play New Mexico, he's playing with the big chip on his shoulder, right? I think Houston kind of needs guys with that chip on their shoulder as they move into this big conference. And I think that's kind of like a mentality that can bleed in, like the kind of guy that can lay a hit that bleeds into the rest of the game, right? I think that's the kind of guy you're looking at when you're looking at AJ Halsey. Also cool to see a Fort Bend Marshall product come home. We're hoping to use the transfer portal window in the future to do more of that kind of stuff with all the high-end recruits that leave Houston, go elsewhere. We can bring them back in transfers. This works well for him. It can work well for others. Halsey chose Houston when he could have gone to a number of other Power 5 programs. So I think that bodes well for us as a program. But as far as things he does well in coverage, same physical kind of guy we're talking about at the point of contact. So whether that's, mugged up on the line and press coverage or at the point of the break or whatever route, he is really, really like appropriately physical. And by that, I mean like he is physical to the degree that it disrupts the offense, but not to the degree that it gets him a penalty very often, right? One very penalized at New Mexico. And I think that's an important line to walk. And he very clearly already walks that line very, very well. We'll see if it translates to the Big 12 play, but I think that's a good sign for him and the Cougs. Guys returning, Dorian Friend is a redshirt freshman who's gained 15 good pounds since high school. He's a good high-end 3-star recruit at a high school. Redshirt freshman, we haven't seen him a whole lot, so we'll see if he rotates in. But people had high things to say about him out of spring ball, and if he can fit into that rotation of guys, McCutcheon, Gaston, Halsey, suddenly you're like, oh, wait a second, right? That's a real ball player. Jalen Emery was young and thrown into the fire a year ago after guys went down hurt. I will say that at media availability in, was that April? Dana had good things to say about his growth and development. It was last spring during spring ball practices. I think it was April. And so I think that what's happening there is that, after having had that year of chaos when he was not expecting to play as much as he did last year as a young football player, maturing, growing, getting more snaps under your belt, getting more practice under your belt. I think those things all help him grow for sure. In a similar vein, Antonio Brooks was the backup boundary safety behind Hassan Hippolyte last year. And he did a lot of that yo-yo kind of stuff when he was in the game. Hip moving to linebacker makes me think that there's a chance you'll see Antonio Brooks doing more of that this year. And so does he become the guy that comes in and plays down a lot? I don't think he's a carbon copy of Hassan Hippolyte. But I will say that I think he at least understands that role, and we knows Doug Belk's offense, or Doug Belk's defense, and how to adjust to other offenses they'll see throughout the season. I say all that to say that the DBs have me excited, and I think that they're a really strong group. And Halsey and Gaston and McCutcheon and Fleming, Hamilton, all these guys are new faces. And I'm only mentioning the guys I think might start or have a chance to start. There are a number of the guys on depth that you can talk about in the comments down below that could also come in and be game changers for sure. I don't mean to intentionally dismiss people. We get between 20 and 30 minutes for a show here, right? But I do want to talk about, with so many new faces in the third segment, what could it look like if all of that goes wrong? So I don't mean to be Debbie Downer. Frankly, a lot of your commentary and stuff down below on the various podcast feeds or YouTube implies that you all think I'm too optimistic. And everyone learns and grows. And so we're trying to take that into account a little bit. But I look at the DBs and I see a ton of names that were not on the roster last year. Full stop. I mean, and that's a good thing, right? Last year's defense, frankly, especially by the time a couple guys got hurt, wasn't good enough. You can't give up 77 points to SMU, a team that's going to play in Power 5 football for free, apparently. You can't do that and consider yourself a strong defense. And so you need new faces. You need better players. They went out and got who they think are better players. The problem in the secondary on that is so much of passing off routes and covering route combinations and stuff like that does require some degree of continuity and teamwork. We saw that fall apart for Houston last year when guys got hurt, right? And so as they go into this season with a bunch of new guys, and yes, they play UTSA out the gate in week 1. UTSA is, notably not bad. We saw that a year ago, right? And yeah, sure, you get Rice week 2 or whatever, and then TCU week 3, boom, right? Turn around and get Sam Houston State, then boom, we're right back into Big 12 play with Texas Tech at their place, right? And that is to say that there are really, I was going to say 2.5, but really 3 major tests for the secondary in the first 5 weeks, right? That's going to really stress out a group of guys that has not played together in live situations a whole lot. Now, obviously, football seasons are short. College careers are 4 years. Every team deals with some level of turnover of guys. But I do think it's worth pointing out that will present a challenge. And while every team in America is doing it, on top of things like the rules continue to make it easier to score and the rules are all in favor of the offense and those kinds of things, that's going to be a challenge that we don't know what the reaction will be. We don't know what if it will impact the play on the field or not. We also, and I like Doug Belk. I think I'm in the minority on that. I think people like him as a person, I guess I should say, but I think people think that there's better defense coordinators out there. What I like about Doug Belk, I think, is that I think of more like the 2021 Houston Cougar defense that eliminated big plays, and big passing plays didn't happen for the vast majority of that season, right? Like Marcus Jones doesn't just develop out of thin air. Like that takes coaching, right? And then I think it's interesting that we think of Doug Belk as just a secondary guy, and admittedly more of his background is in the back half of the defense, but like we give credit on the defensive line in the front 7 to Brian Early and the player talent. And then when things go wrong in the back half of the defense, we give that to Doug Belk as if he's not the defensive coordinator, right? So I have a number of reasons why I think that he gets a bad rap. But I will say, as much as I love reminiscing about the 2021 defense, Doug Belk was also in charge of that atrocious 2022 defense. And there's potential here that with new faces and with new names and all those kinds of things, and frankly, just a better schedule, you're playing better competition, that we've seen on tape. It's literally on tape from last year where the holes are and where the holes can be and how easy it is to poke holes in this defense. And frankly, it's the kind of damning year where once that's all on tape for 2022, you're just taking advantage of stuff that people have done before. Football's copycat sport. It's all over. And when you add that into the mix, the big cauldron you're stirring up like a witch, all of a sudden you have that, the newness, better football teams you're playing against, etc. You got real problems. And I would be lying if my excitement about all the new faces didn't also have some anxiety about, oh my God, it's all new faces, right? I don't mean to say and dismiss that feeling if you've got that one going on too. I choose to be excited because why the heck not? And I also think that there is, and I know that there is, I should say, talent in each of these people individually. And so I think the optimist in me, the person in me that wants to see this team do well, sees it all fit together in the best way possible, right? Sees Isaiah Hamilton and Malik Fleming and Alex Hogan rotating in at corners with a Sean McCutcheon kind of going inside and outside from the nickel, the outside guy. Sees AJ Halsey coming up and powdering someone, trying to come across the middle. Sees Jawan Gaston pick off Quinn Ewers or what. Like, I can see these things happening. I just hope that that's not me being the same crazy, far too optimistic person. You guys tell me I am in the comments. Tell me in the comments down below. I guess. Tell me in the comments what you think about me in the comments. Anyway, but I think there's a chance this works out really well. And so I admittedly am far too optimistic far too often, but I really do think there's a chance this works out really well. If you agree, disagree, what have you, can find me on all social media platforms at Painsworth 512 PAINSWORTH 512 on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all the social media services. That's where you can find me. Thank you all so much for making Locked on Cougs your first listen of the day. As today is Friday, or I guess if you're listening to this over the weekend, we are counting down single-digit days to the season starting. Go over and check out Locked on Big 12 for your second listen of the day. They're counting down to Big 12 football as well. It's a ton of fun. Shout out to the work Drake Toll's doing over there. I know Drake Toll and Houston have an interesting relationship. Trust me, when it comes to talking about the Big 12 and he's on your side, that's a fun relationship to have, I promise. Go check out that show. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked on Cougs Day. Locked on Cougs, Private Locked on Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.